Hello there, Year 3, and welcome to your fifth lesson in our series on rocks and soils. Today we're going to be looking at fossils, what they are, how they are formed, and who studies them to find out all the history behind them. So, as always, we're going to start with knowing more, remembering more. A permeable material, remember we did that in the last video lesson, what permeable means. A permeable material does not allow water to flow through it. True or false? Which of these is not a type of rock? Granite, marble, slate, or aluminium? Name two ways that rocks are used. Think about that. Think about in everyday life, what do you see? Where do you find rocks? And finally, magnetic forces can act a distance. I think that's meant to say magnetic forces can act over a distance. Is that true or false? Let's have a look at the answers. A permeable material does allow water to flow through it. Do you remember our investigation where some rocks had the water sitting on the top, some let the water run off the sides, but others absorbed the water and it passed through the rock. So permeable allows water to flow through it. So it is false. Now, which of these is not a type of rock? Aluminium. Aluminium is a type of metal. Name two ways that rocks are used. For roof tiles, gravestones. I'm sure you can think of many more. And magnetic forces can act over a distance. Is that true or false? It's true. So magnetic forces can have an effect and do act over a long distance. Right, okay, so today, what are fossils and who studies them? So you will be able to describe what a fossil is and how it is formed, be able to give examples of what fossils can tell you about the past, and explain what a paleontologist studies. Our key words today are vocabulary, fossil, remains, paleontologist. Now, to remain somewhere means to stay, and that's a verb. But in our science lessons today, remains is a noun. Okay, so remember that. It can be a verb or a noun, and today it is a noun. Okay, so let's see how we're going to achieve all that. So look at the pictures. What do you think they are? Yes, they're all different types of fossils. But what is a fossil? Have a think. Can you explain what a fossil is or what you think it is in a really good sentence? Here's one I did. Fossils are the preserved remains or traces of a dead organism. Okay, let's break that down a little bit. So fossils are preserved remains. If you preserve something, you keep it from rotting. It stays. And remains are, for example, your skeleton. When something dies, what's left are the remains. And a dead organism, so obviously an organism, a living creature that is now dead. Okay. How long ago were fossils formed? Now, we looked at the geologic time scale, and we have got different periods of history, and these are millions of years ago. Okay, so you can see which fossils formed in which period of history. Okay, so these are the dates. For example, this was over 4,600 million years ago. And you can have a good look at that. Pause the video and have a look through all the different periods and which fossils you may find, because that's when these animals, these organisms were living. Okay, let's find out what a fossil is. How long ago were fossils formed? How we can find that out. What covers the remains of animals, and how are fossils revealed? Now, revealed is to show something, so how are fossils found? We're going to watch a video now and hopefully find out the answers to all of those questions.
Greetings, Immature, and I'm about to witness an extremely rare event, a fossil being made. Some animals many millions of years ago were buried quickly after their death in substances like sand, volcanic ash, or mud. Did you see that? Fantastic! Usually the soft parts like the muscles rot away, leaving the hard parts like the skeleton behind. Then, over time, more layers of sediment cover the remains. That's why fossils are only found in sedimentary rocks. Now, this guy's been under a whole lot of pressure, and in that time the sediment around the bone has compacted to form rock. Water has seeped into the bone and dissolved it completely. Minerals in the water are then deposited inside this mold, and ta-da! A fossil is made! Then, over millions of years, the rock rises to the surface and is worn away by erosion. Man, I dig fossils.
Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that little video, but did it help you to answer the questions? So let's have a think. How long ago were fossils formed? Did you find out? Millions of years ago. What covers the remains of animals? Layers of sediment. And how are fossils revealed? And that's by erosion. So layers of sediment is all the layers of the rocks and soils putting pressure on top of the dead animal, and over years it gets more layers on top of it. And erosion, this is how we find them. Erosion wears away at the rocks and the sediment. Okay, now there's a little activity for you to do here. You're going to cut out the pictures for the different stages of fossil formation. Okay, so we've got 4 pictures. Stick them into your book in the correct order. Then you've got a description of the different stages of fossilization. You've got to match the description to each of the pictures, each of the stages. And then you're going to highlight any keywords that you see in the descriptions. Remember our key vocabulary, which is remains, fossil, remains, fossils, and paleontologists. Okay, let's carry on. Right, there's your answers, and you can check by pausing the video once you've done the activity. Okay, so have you achieved the first one? I can describe what a fossil is and how it is formed. So have a think. Can you write the definition in your book? The next part of our lesson is to give examples of what fossils can tell us about the past. Okay, so what information can we get from the fossils that paleontologists find? Look at the fossil pictures again. What can the fossils tell us about the animal, plant, or insect? Okay, pause your video and have a really good look at all of those fossils. Can you work out what they are? Okay, so what can they tell us? You're going to now complete a table in your book to show what we can and can't tell from fossils. So you've got 2 columns in your table. First one is what we can tell, what we can find out about fossils, or from fossils, and what fossils don't tell us. Okay, so let's start. So fossils can tell us the size of the dead organism. It can tell us the shape. It can tell us which animal it is and which where it lived in the time scale in the past, what plants lived in the past. Can it tell us the colour? No, because the years and years of laying sediment on top and the pressure and the breaking down of the animal means that the colour does not remain. Can it tell us what the animals ate? No, because the stomach is a soft tissue and that will get removed in the early stages of fossilization. Only the hard parts, like the skeleton, remain. Okay, so what do fossils tell us about? And what can fossils tell us about the environment in which the animal or the plant lived? So we're going to watch another video now. Listen carefully and see if you can answer these.
Greetings, Emma, and this is my fossil record. A rock record of all my evolutionary ancestors, stretching back billions of years. I've found fossils of all these guys. They show how the Earth and everything that's lived on it has changed over time. For example, this fella, he once lived in a nice warm tropical sea, and when he died, his body became fossilized in rock. Then, over millions of years, the whole environment changed. That means we can find fossils in surprising places, like sea creatures at the top of mountains. Fossils show us some of the incredible animals and plants that have inhabited our planet. But most of these species have died out or become extinct, like our poor old friends, the dinosaurs. Oh, it seems I've outstayed my welcome.
That was incredible! Oh, did you see that?
Okay, so let's see what we learned from that little video. What do fossils tell us about? They provide evidence for how living things and the environment have changed over time. What can fossils tell us about the environment? They can also help us understand how the Earth has changed. Okay, so did that help you give examples of what fossils can tell us about the past? So much information we can find out from fossils that without them we would otherwise not know. And the last thing on our list here is I can explain what a paleontologist studies. Paleontologist. So remember your syllables help you to spell that word. Let's see if we can find out what that is. Okay, now these 3 pictures show paleontologists. Can you guess what they're doing? Can you guess what paleontologist means? Let's have a look. A paleontologist is someone who studies fossils. That was quite obvious from the pictures, wasn't it? So ology is a study. Okay, that ending on a word means it's a study of something. So a paleontologist studies fossils. They try to get information about the history of life on Earth. Okay, we're going to look at a very famous paleontologist now, Mary Anning. There's a video to watch. It is 12 minutes long, and obviously you can pause and re-watch, etc. Once we've watched the video, I would like you to complete this table of information about Mary. All the information will be in the video. Okay, so if we can start watching that, I'm going to share my screen with you.
I'm going to tell you something about my life. My name is Mary Anning. I was born in the year 1799 to a poor family in a small town by the sea. It's difficult to know where to start my story, because the truth is, I was born once, and then, when I was just 15 months old and still a baby, I had my second beginning. My mother had left me in the charge of 3 ladies. They were getting some fresh air when suddenly the sky got dark and a storm cloud came rolling across the sky. As the rain started, they ran to shelter under a tree. Suddenly, a great bolt of lightning leapt from the sky, striking the tree and the ladies with it. All 3 of the poor souls fell to the ground. My father came running. They say I was a dull child before, but that after the lightning strike I was bright, like the lightning itself had gone into me and brought me fully to life. I grew up by the sea. Every day my father would take my brother Joseph and I down to the beach, no matter what the weather. We were looking for these things we called curiosities. They were beautiful things hidden inside the rocks. I didn't know what they were, these curiosities, but somehow I knew that they came from another world. You might know them to be fossils. You might know that they are creatures that lived millions of years ago, turned to stone and waiting to be discovered amongst the rocks. But we didn't know that then. To us, they were just beautiful, mysterious things. I learned how to spot them. I was good at it. A keen eye, my father said. My father taught me how to get the curiosities out of the rock. You had to have such patience. One hit too hard with a hammer and the whole thing could be in pieces. So I learnt to be patient and to find it one tiny chip at a time, to tease it out from where it had been hiding for who knows how long. Because we were poor, once we got the curiosities out of the rock and cleaned them up, me and Joseph would sell them from a stall on the street. People thought they were frozen lightning bolts or the devil's own toenails. We'd sell them for a penny each. One day, a lady came by. Said her name was Elizabeth Philpott. She showed such special interest in our fossils and thought we had a fine collection. She seemed to know more about these things than anyone I'd ever met. So when she asked if I'd like to see her fossils, I asked Father and went with her straight away. I'd never seen anything so fine. She had them all lined up like little treasures in a special cabinet. There were things in that cabinet I'd never seen before, things that made my heart beat harder. Then, she gave me some books to borrow. I was so hungry to see what they said. I read about all the new ideas coming from the best men in science. Ideas that were new and strange, that these curiosities were really creatures from another time that had died and been somehow locked up inside the stone, thousands, even millions of years ago. I started to see the fossils differently and imagine them coming to life. It gave me such a thrill to think of it. It was all I wanted to do, to walk on the beach and stare at the stones. It was like an itch or a twitch, just knowing that there were fossils out there waiting to be discovered. But then a terrible thing happened. My father got very ill. He had fallen down the cliffs and just wasn't getting better. I was just 12 years old when my father died. Now, I would have to walk the beach without him. We were more poor now than ever. Selling curiosities was our best chance of making money, so every day I went out to look for them. And besides, the fossils were all I thought about. It was like an itch or a twitch, knowing that there were fossils out there just waiting to be discovered. I grew up and I never stopped looking. I could see the world so clearly now. I knew what the scientists were saying about what they were, these fossils, as they were now called, and I had my own ideas too. It must be hard for you to imagine, but these were such extraordinary ideas. People found it hard to believe that the world could really be millions of years old, and that the curiosities were really creatures that had lived all that time ago. Then, one day I was out hunting, eyes scanning the stones and cliffs as usual, and I saw something that made all the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It weren't much to see, but there was a hint of something sticking out from a large slab of slate. I could have walked past it 1,000 times, but this time, it was as if I could see beneath the surface, and I just knew that this was something really big. I'd never left it on my own. I called some quarrymen who knew me well for all the time I spent on the beach to come and help carry the slab back to my workroom. I had to calm myself down. I knew it would take an age and that I had to be patient. I started to chip away at the great slab. Just like my father had taught me, I had to work one tiny chip at a time. Hurry, and I could ruin it. One tiny chip at a time, I waited to see what would emerge from the rock. One tiny chip at a time, I couldn't stop. I couldn't think of anything else. As it slowly emerged, I knew this was different from anything I'd found before. It took days, weeks, one tiny chip at a time. Finally, I stood back and looked at what it was that I had found. It was the skull of some great creature, a creature like nothing alive. I ran to fetch Elizabeth. She came with an important man of science all the way from London. He said it were like nothing he'd ever seen, and that he'd never seen a creature with such an enormous eye. He said it was important. He said that all of science would be amazed. Imagine that. They called it an ichthyosaur, after the Greek words for fish lizard. To my astonishment, he gave me £25 for it. For the first time in my life, my family would have no need to worry about money. My ichthyosaur was just the beginning. I never stopped looking. I found more things the world had never seen. They took my fossils up to London, put them on display in the British Museum. My finds would change the whole way the world was understood. But they never once said who had found them. The men of science wrote their books and forgot all about me. Now, though, almost 200 years later, they say I was the greatest fossil hunter ever. How about that? My father would have been so proud. I found many incredible things, but just think, for every fossil I found, how many more may lie undiscovered right beneath your feet?
Oh, what a very interesting story that was. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, you can go back and watch the video and answer those questions on your slide. So let's remember, we need to find out, obviously write her name at the top of the table, find out when she was born, where she lived, what was her family life like, very interesting family life, what did she find, what did she do with them, what was her most famous discovery? Where were her fossils put on display? And the last part of our success criteria, can you explain what a paleontologist is? Oh, we're going to go through that. So hopefully you now know what a fossil is and how it was formed. You can give examples of how fossils tell us about the past, what animals and plants lived millions of years ago, and you can tell us what a paleontologist is and what they study. Okay, so can you have a think about these questions? Can review your knowledge. Can you write down into your books what fossils are made from? What can fossils tell us? And who was Mary Anning? Remember to write in full sentences and add as much detail as you possibly can. You can go back and watch the video again, find out as much information as possible. Okay, pause the video while you write out your answers. Now you can check them. Fossils are made from animals, insects, or plants, which are all or were living organisms that died and were buried quickly a very long time ago. What can they tell us? They can tell us the length and height of the living organism, the plant, animal, or insect, where it lived and where it died, and the type of bones or teeth that it had. Now, we know about the bones and the teeth because remember, during the process of fossilization, it is the hard parts of the organism, the skeleton and the teeth, for example, that remain. And little interesting fact, the enamel on your teeth is one of the hardest substances in the world. Okay, so enamel on your teeth is extremely hard substance, and that's why the teeth remain in the fossils. And who was Mary Anning? Very interesting life story. She was a famous paleontologist who loved looking for fossils. Okay, so hopefully you really enjoyed learning about fossils, what they are, how they're formed, and the people who study them. And without the study of fossils, we would not know what happened millions of years ago because there was no history books written. So it's our only way of linking with the past to find out what living organisms lived millions and millions of years ago. So I hope you learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed learning about fossils. Now this video is on the website, so you can watch it again and again, anytime. Learn as much as you can about fossils. You can do some research on the internet, and the BBC videos, have another watch of those. There's quite interesting information that we haven't seen today that you can also see on BBC Bite Size. In addition to that, you can find the video and the quizzes on Purple Mash. And if you are picking up your workbooks from school, there'll be also a copy of this video, the PowerPoint, and the questions. Enjoy, and I will see you in week 6 for our review of spring term and our rocks and soils project, and we will be testing your knowledge. So until then, learn lots, research more, and watch all the videos again. Do your revision. Have a lovely time. See you next week. Bye-bye.